We are doing the grade 12 RT or Information Technology Prac exam, paper 1 from November 2022, and this is the last video in our 4-video series, and we are doing the last question, which is question 4. So let's get into it. So here we've got the last question. Remember, if you're doing the questions in sequential order, this is the last question on the exam. You're probably running out of time. It tends to be a difficult question. It normally revolves around arrays or 2D arrays. And so these are going to be the tips that I give you in order to handle the last bit of the question. First of all, assume you're not going to finish. Assume that you're not going to finish all the questions and just get the marks. Get all the marks possible and slowly but surely work your way through the paper. And there are normally going to be a couple of questions that you can work on, some easy ones and some more difficult ones. Make sure that you get the easy ones correct and that you get some of the marks for the difficult questions. So that's my strategy when dealing with the last question. So let's have a look at it. They talk about vending machines over here, but it's like reverse vending machines where you, instead of getting stuff from the vending machine, you're giving into the vending machine for recycling bottles and cans. So that's the concept that they've got here. And you can see that there are going to be 3 questions, 4.1 to 4.3. So let's just take it step by step and understand the question, and then we can work from there. First of all, we've got an array called array names, which has 10 names of students or learners in a class. Okay, so there are 10 names. And then there's a 2D array vending, which stores the type of items recycled by the learners. So what's nice about this, I always like a 2D array where the values are different, where it goes from 1 to 10 and 1 to a different number. Then I can easily determine what my loops are going to be. That makes my life a little bit easier. So for example, 1 to 10, that's going to represent the 10 students, and that 1 to 15 is going to represent the 15 items that they have recycled. So that would be 1 student, for example. That student has only recycled 1 C. I've got a funny feeling that C and B are going to refer to cans and bottles. So let's have a look at question 4.1. The names of the learners are provided in the array names and the corresponding in array vending. We've spoken about that. The items are represented using a B and a C, where B is a bottle and C is a can. That makes sense. And the code has been provided to display the heading. Write code to display the content of the array names in the following format. So we want the name, tab, and the recycled item also. So we want something that looks like that. And you'll notice that some students haven't recycled all 15 items, so there might be blanks. So we want to do that. Now, whenever we're dealing with 2D arrays, my biggest tip, don't try to do everything, just get one right. We're just going to deal with Ruth in this example. So let's get Ruth working. Let's get all that working over there. And then if we get that working, then we can repeat that whole process 10 times and hopefully it'll be able to do everything for us. Let's do that. First things first, let's go to the question. So here we go. We've got question 4.1 and we've got names and names items. So they've told us, if you remember correctly, that position 1 in this array refers to Ruth, and then position 1 of those 10 is Ruth's contribution towards recycling, which is just a C. I actually have a Ruth in one of my RT classes this year, and she enjoys watching my videos. And when she matriculates in this year, my class is going to be Ruthless. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to display Ruth followed by a tab. That's what I want to do first of all. So let's do that. So we're going to basically build the string. I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to build a string, and then once we've done everything, we'll display the string. So let's do that. So I'm going to have a string. Let's call it S-line. I'll type string, and we are going to say S-line is going to start off being whatever is in array names for Ruth. Ruth is number 1, and then we're going to add a #9. Okay, so we got that. So array names, it is array names, there we go. And we're going to get the first name, which is Ruth, and then have a #9. Then I want to loop through all of those values just for Ruth, where array is a 1, but I want to go from 1 to 15 because there are 15 possible options. I've got to assume that there might be values there. Don't just assume that it's just 1. There might be 15 values. So we're going to make an I variable for our loop of type integer. And so we're going to loop from 1 to 15 because that's how many items there are that are potentially being recycled. So we're going to say S-line is equal to whatever's in S-line plus the value in array vending, if I remember correctly. So array vending, and it takes a value from 1 to 10 and 1 to 15. So we want to go from 1 to 15, but we only want to do Ruth. So this must always be a 1. So we're going to go array vending. We want a 1, and then we want to do 1, 2, 3 up until 15. Do we have a variable that's going 1 to our looping variable is going 1 to 15. So let's just do R over there. So we're going to put the name and then a gap, and then we're going to put the first item in the first row, and then the second item of the first row, and then the third. We're going to add all those items. Now they're blank, so it'll just add the C. And then once all of that is done, and S line, remember we're adding this onto S line, so that's why we say S line is equal to S line plus it. Once all of that is done, then over here we can say in the rich Q4 dot lines dot add, and we're going to add this S line. So that's just going to hopefully do Ruth's line. Let's see if that works. There we go. Let's try it. Boom. There we go. So Ruth does work. It does put the 1C. I'm assuming that if there were other values, it would do it. So that works for Ruth. Now that works for the first case, I basically want to repeat this whole process 10 times because there are 10 students. So I'm going to repeat this whole place 10 times. So let's make an R. I'm going to call it R studs just so that I know that it's the studs. And I'm going to say for R studs is going to loop from 1 to 10. And what are we going to do? We're going to do all of this. All of that is going to be from 1 to 10. So I'm actually going to make a comment here. So this is the end of the R studs loop. Okay, so there we go. So that's all going to be done. And then all of this will be indented a bit. So we got one working, and then we looped it around from 1 to 10. But this is just going to do Ruth 10 times. If I run it, it'll do Ruth C, Ruth C. So once I've done Ruth the first time, then I want to do the second student and then the third student up until 10. So instead of this being a 1, we want it to be R studs, because R studs are going to be a 1 first and then it'll be 2. So for each student, I want that to change to R studs. So this will get student 1 and then student 2. Each time it'll reset R studs or to the new student, reset S line for the new line. And then here we are not using R anymore, but not using 1 anymore. We're using R studs here as well, because we're not doing the first row every time. We're doing the first row for the first student, but then the second row for the second student, and so on. So those values, normally your 1s will change to whatever your outer loop is. If this is your outer loop and then this is your inner loop, you'll normally notice if you do the first one, if you do the code to get the first one working, you'll have 1s, and then those 1s will be replaced by whatever your outer loop variable is going to be. So let's test that quickly by just adding that quick little modification. And display, boom, and there we go. And I think that is correct, Mr. Long. That looks very similar to everything. There we go. So there we go. We got it working. So that's question 4.1. Question 4.2. So learners using the vending machine for recycling items will be paid for each item. So a bottle will give them R2.15, where a can will give them 75 cents. We must write the name now of each of the learners, very similar to what we've just done, and we must work out the total amount paid. So we're going to, again, in this case, let's get Ruth working. Let's just do Ruth, and if we get it right, we can then repeat that whole process 10 times. So let's try to do that. So we're going to go to the code over here for question 4.2, and they've done the heading for us, and something very similar to what we've just done. So I'm going to start off with my R variable of type integer, which we'll do for our loop to go through all of the different items for Ruth, and then my S line, which is going to be my string that I construct, that I display. Let's make it a string, and then we're going to obviously total all those values. So R total, let's make it R total of type real, because we're dealing with cents here. So let's try that. So the first thing we're going to do, if we're going to get Ruth going, is we need to set our total to 0. We can start that at 0. Or maybe we actually don't need the S line, but let's see how we go. Let's go. We're going to go for Ruth. We just want to work out Ruth's total. So we're going to say for R equals, now Ruth has potentially got 15 items that she has donated. So let's try to do this. So what we're going to do, if the value in array vending, remember we're only doing Ruth, so that's going to be a 1, right? Because if you remember correctly, the first value is the different students. So we're only dealing with Ruth, which is student 1, but we want to deal with 1 to 15 for that. So just remember that. So we're going to go from 1 until a variable that's going 1 to 15. That's my R variable. If that is equal to a B, then we have a bottle. So then we're going to take our total, take whatever's in our total, and add, what did they say a bottles will cost? A bottle is R2.15. So let's add 2.15. Else, and I'm literally going to copy this because it's going to be easier for me to do that. See how we're saving time here by doing that? If the value is a C, then we're going to be adding, I think it was 0.75 cents, if I remember correctly. There we go. That's correct. 75 cents. So those are the two values that are going to be added. If it's not a B or a C, we're going to do nothing. So there we go. So that's going to add up Ruth's total in R total. So R total is equal to 0. So then at the end here, we're going to say, hey, Ruth, let's add you RQ lines.add. What do we want to add? And this is why we don't need the actual S line. We can actually just go array names 1 plus a #9. Let's go look at how they display it. And then they want to display it 2 decimal places as currency. So let's go do that. We're going to display our total but we're going to convert it from a float to a string f. And I'm just going to put this on a new line so we can see it. And we are going to go ff currency 8,2. So that will do just Ruth, hopefully. So let's see if that works. And we're looking for a total of, I think, 75 cents because Ruth only has one can that donated. So let's try that. So okay, going to calculate. Boom, there we go. So Ruth is working. Remember, it's doing just that part. Now it is doing the currency correct. So let's try to do all of this. This is all of this is working correctly. So I'm going to put all of this inside its own loop, everything that I've just done. So I'm going to make another loop over here, which is going to be our studs, which is going to be from 1 to 10. There are 10 students or learners. So this is my outer loop. And we're going to do all of this. So that's why I'm going to put a begin here. And we're going to put the end somewhere over here. This is the end of the outer loop. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to add our studs here quickly. And now we're going to go through and see where we have ones. If we have ones, we might have to change it to our studs. We were only doing student 1, but we want to do student 1 to 10 now. So have a look there. We are doing 1 every single time, but we're actually going to do our studs, because when it's a 1, we'll do student 1 all the time. Same with that one over there. And then once we move to student 2, we'll do student 2 all the time. That's why it's important to put the total initialized inside of the outer loop, so that when we start with the second student, that it resets it back to 0. Otherwise, it's going to add those values onto the previous student's value. And then over here, we want to display the student, not student Ruth every time, but stud, student 1, and then 2, then 3. I think if we just make those changes, we should have the correct answers. Let's try it. Boom. Let's go look at what they want me to display. And does it look similar? Yes, I think it looks exactly correct. There we go. So we've got the first part done correctly. Well done. So that's the first thing. Name of the student must be displayed. Name of the learners who will receive the highest amount. So that's the part that's displayed over there. Now that's the tricky part. Now how are we going to do that? Now, that's quite tricky to do. Now, remember, this is the last question. You're running out of time, so you want to try and maximize as many marks as possible. It's probably an idea that you could put those values into its own array and then go through it afterwards. There are lots of probably techniques. The quickest way that I would probably think about doing this is while I'm actually doing these totals is to try to calculate the max. I just want to do that first. Just see if we can get that 18.9 as our max. So to do that, I'm going to make a max variable, which will also be a real because we're dealing with currency. And whenever I do max, this is going to be for the entire group of students. So I'm going to set our max here, well, not our max, our max, to a really opposite of what it is. So we want the biggest number, so I'm going to set it to a really small number. Definitely think no one's going to be collecting a value of less than -999. So that's a nice small number. And then the moment I've worked out the total over here, so over here when we display this total, we've displayed it, we've got it. Here's where I want to actually check if the total that we've just displayed is it our biggest total. So if the total that we've just worked out, if that is bigger than my R max, which the first one will definitely be because it's a really small number. But after that, it'll only change if the R total is bigger than the max. If my R total is the max value, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a new R max. R max, you've been dethroned. R total is now my new max value. So that's going to be my new max value. And then at the end here, I just want to, for interest's sake, just show message that total of R max, or not the total, the R max, just to see that we got the right value. We're going to convert it from a float to a string. This is just to check that I'm actually getting the right value. So let's just see if that works. Remember, we're running out of time, so we want to maximize marks. So if I do that, okay, so 18.9 is my max value, so it is working out the correct max value. That's great. So I don't need to do this anymore. So what I'm going to do now is once we have the max, I'm literally going to do the exact code again. Remember, this is probably not the most efficient way of doing it, but I'm doing it to save time. I'm going to copy this code. We're going to go through that whole process again, determining what each person got. We don't need to work out the max anymore, so I can take that bit out. So what we are doing here is we are working out the total for all the students. This is after we've displayed them and worked out the max. Now we're going through it, doing the same calculation, but we are going to display the name of the student and their total, but we're only going to do this. If you look here correctly, we're only going to do that if the student's value, if this R total is equal to R max, because you'll notice here in the memo they give us 2 possible answers. So there are multiple people that couldn't reach that max value. If the total weight that we just calculated a second time is equal to the max that we calculated in the first place, then we have one of the students at least that has got the max value. Then we're going to do this display. I don't even think we need to do the begin end. So again, trying to save time, I'm just going to do that. I'll literally copy and paste my code. I'm not displaying this, only those that where the total is equal to the max value that we worked out the very first time. So let's try that, see if that works. Boom, there we go, and it picked up the winning people. There we go, so that's great. Just something to take note of. You'll notice that our display isn't exactly like it is in the memo. Do you see how the memo has got the R right next to it? And that's because in this they use the format. Now I looked at the memo. The memo doesn't specify that you must use the format. It just says that you must display 2 decimal places to currency. So I think this would be marked correctly, but I just want to show you what the format looks like if we were going to display it in the correct format. So instead of using float to string F, I'm going to do it over here with this part here. Instead of using float to string F, they use the format function, which also converts a real into a string, and you take the following. So we're going to say format, and we're going to say, and you normally give some sort of text of what it must look like. So we go $8, I think it's 2, that's how many places in front, 2 decimal places, and we're going to put a quote there, and we're going to put M. Actually, they put an M over there as well, I think, and then they put the variable that we want to convert to a string. That's what they use for the format. I think I must put that in square brackets first. Let's put that in square brackets. There we go. Let's try it. So there we go. It's not exactly the same, but that's what they used in the memo. So I think because the memo is slightly different, I don't think they would be too specific about having to be exactly like that. As long as it's 2 decimal places to currency, it would get you the marks. So let's move on to the final question. Again, as I said, time's running out. We've got to go quickly, Mr. Long. And yeah, we've got 4.3. The user must do the following if a learner wants to add an item to be recycled. They're going to select one of the items. Let's look at the GUI over here. They are going to select which student they are, and then they can select which one they want to use. And so the bottle or a can, and then you would then must add the next available empty space in the array vending at the index. Okay, so whatever is the open space. If you remember correctly over here, for example, Ruth at position 2 has an opening space, so we would put it over there, and then after that we would put it in position 3 and so on. So we got to look at wherever there is not a B or a C. If there's not a B or C, that means an empty space. We can do that, and they actually give me a little bit of the steps to do. So let's go through that. First thing, they actually say if there's no space available, we must display that there's no space, and they also say display a suitable message if they haven't selected an item. So how do you know if they haven't? So again, you're running out of time, get the marks. We can do that quite easily. Well, this is a list box. If there's no item selected, it's -1, and the same with a radio group. So that's the easiest part. So I'm literally going to do that because we're running out of time. Let's go quickly, Mr. Long. So I'm going to say if the radio group dot item index is equal to a -1, or so it could be that or the other one, which is a list box, lst q4 dot item index, not height, is equal to a -1. If one of those two is true, then we can show a message. And what's the message they want me to show? Please select both a name and an item. Please select an item. So there we go. That's my first bit. Remember, we're using or, so this must be in brackets. I can hear some of you screaming, Mr. Long, where are the brackets around the conditions? Yes, we're getting there. We're getting there. So we got the first bit done. Okay, that's great. So that's the first check. Else. And now we get to the part, I guess. So we want to go until there's an opening, basically. I'm going to come back over here. We want to basically, if I was with Chris, for example, we want to go until there's an opening. So we don't need to do just the first case, for example, because we're going to select who the person is, and we're just going to do that particular person. So we need to get the value. We need to know which value in the array we're working with. So if it was Ruth, it's 1. If it's Nicole, it's a 2. So we need to work that out based on the list box that they've got. If you remember correctly, there's a list box. And if you remember a list box item index, the first value is a 0, but Ruth, we want to refer to position 1. Okay, so we need to know which student we are dealing with. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to record which student. So the stud that we're dealing with, that's an integer. And I'm going to say, okay, what are we dealing with? Our stud is equal to whatever is in the list box's item index, because that's the one that's selected. We know it's selected because we wouldn't get you if they didn't select something. Whatever the item index, but if it's a 0, we want it to be a 1. If it's a 2, we want it to be a 3. So take that item index, we're just going to add 1. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And the second thing, I need to know what's being recycled. So I'll make a S input, call it input. That's going to be what is recycled. I'm going to make it a string because I think my array is an array of strings, if I'm correct over here. It's an array of strings, so we're going to make it a string. So my S input needs to be a C or a B depending on what the user selects. Now there's lots of ways of doing it. You could do a simple if statement that says if the radio group item index is equal to a 0, then which one is selected? Then it's the bottle. So then if it's a 0, then the input is the B. Else it's obviously going to be the C then. So if the item index is a 1, that's the second item, then it would be a C. Just for interest's sake, there is another quick way of getting the value that you entered. So you could go and say get the radio group Q4 dot items, and then in square bracket you get the one that is selected. Now which one is selected? Well, the one that's selected, it's whatever the item index is. So if we do this, if you get the item index, the radio group's item index in square bracket of the items, it will return the whole name of the one that is selected. It'll either be bottle or can. Now we don't want the whole word, we just want the first letter. Now we could use then a copy if you want to copy the first position, or you can just, if you remember correctly, remember S temp square bracket 3 would give the third value of a string. We know that this whole thing is going to be its own string, so we want the first letter of that whole string. So we literally just go open bracket, close bracket, and square bracket 1. So this will get the one that's selected from the items. So it'll be bottle or can, and get just the first letter of that selected item. So that's another quicker way of doing that. If you're not sure about what I just did there, then rather just stick to that, get the marks. So we've got the student and we've got the item that must be inserted. Now this sounds very much like a search type of thing. We've got to go through each item. When we find the place that we want, we're going to insert it. Otherwise, we're going to keep looking. That sounds very much like a while loop. We're going to need some sort of position. Our pos, where are we in the array? Like from 1 to 15. So our pos is of type integer. And what I'm going to start off, I'm going to start off our pos being a 0. And while our pos is not equal to 15, keep looking. While our pos is not equal to 50, keep looking. So what are we looking for? Let's go begin, end. So what are we going to do? So the first thing is we're going to increase our pos so that it becomes a 1. Okay, so that's what we want to do. And now we want to check if array vending. Now remember, we're dealing with student 1, 2, 3. We're dealing with that student every single time. So I'm going to put our stud as my first value and then our pos as my second value, because that's going to go from 1 to 15. If that is equal to nothing, then we have an open space available. If that's true, then we are going to put in a value in that exact position. We're going to say, hey, all of this is going to equal to the one that we selected, which we've got the letter stored. Where did we store it? There it is in S input. So we can say that's equal to S input. Okay. But then we want to stop looking now if we do that. So I'm going to make another variable called B found. If we found it, we've added it. That's going to be a Boolean. So we're going to assume that we haven't found it. So we're going to come over here and go, okay, B found is equal to false. Initialize it to false. The moment we find a position for it, we're going to say B found is now equal to true. Which means when we do this loop, we actually want to stop when the B found is equal to. So while it's less than 15 and while B found is false, we must keep looking. The moment we reach the end of 15, we can stop looking, and when B found becomes true, we can stop looking. So that's what we're going to do. So if we think about it, we're going to check if they didn't select anything, and we show the message. If we do, we find out which student we're changing, we find out what we want to recycle, and we loop. Let's go to 1. The moment we reach the end, or the moment we've added 1, then we can stop doing this process. But until we do, we're going to keep doing this until we find a place. And when we find an open spot, we're going to put whichever one we selected, a B or a C, that's going to go into that spot. Let's test it to see if it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to display everything. And so now I'm going to add onto Chris. Let's add Chris. We're going to add a bottle. So we're hoping that a B will be. I'm going to add an item and let's display it again. Did you see the B? The B got added there, and that was only that. Okay, now the problem is these people, when they're full. So I think the question says if it's full, if there's no space, then we must say a message saying, hey, I think there's a message. Machine is full. Okay, so we can't put it. So how do we know? Well, I think if we go through this entire loop, if we get to the end, the last position, and B found is still false, that means we didn't find a spot. If that's the case, then we're going to say if over here outside of the loop, there's the end of the while loop. So yeah, we're outside of the while loop. We're going to say if B found is still equal to false after all of that work, then we can show a message machine is full. Machine is full. I think that's it. Let's just double check everything that they wanted. So they wanted me to extract the name. We did that. Display a suitable message. If neither the name, we did that. If there's an empty space, we're going to add the item. Well done, we did. Display the contents of, we haven't done this part. Display the contents of the array for the update. So we must redisplay the names of the array. Now you'll notice I just clicked on that button every single time. I just literally went and clicked on that button, that 4.1, to do that code again. Because I've already got the code that displays all of it, we could either copy all the code from question 4.1, copy this and add it there. That's one way. Or easier way would be, we just want to call the button click again. So btn, we want that button's click event. 4.1, we want to call its click event. So I say dot click, just go to execute the clicking of that button. So we want to force it to click that button. So it'll just display it. So let's try that. So now we don't have to click on that display button. So we can display it now, but now if we want to add a bottle for Chris, you see it went and automatically did the whole click for it. And if we want to add a can for Tommy, there's BCC. But if we want to add something to Nicole, let's add a bottle. It adds it, but let's click on it again. We must select something. Okay, we're going to select a can now for Nicole. Please select, it was Nicole. A can for Nicole. The machine's full, so there's no more space for Nicole. So there we go. I think that's working. I think that's all we have to do. There you go. That's the last question. It wasn't too complicated. The key thing with the last question is time. That's going to be your biggest obstacle. So get the marks, break it down. And when you're dealing with 2D arrays or multiple loops, like an outer loop and inner loop, get the first example working, make sure that it's perfect, and then you can do the outer loop around it and then adjust it to get it working. So there we go. So there's the whole question done. I think that's all of it. Yeah, there we go. We're done. Hopefully it's been useful for your revision. For more exam papers, go to our playlist tab to find a little list there for other exam papers that could help you with exams. Support the channel by clicking on that like button and subscribe and share us with your friends so we can help them as well. And remember, don't do it the long way, do it the Mr. Long way.